this image was taught for you by AI. Let's say this is I tried to create something that is practical and gives you the idea of the problems that you may get dealing with these experiments. So we begin with what are the generative chatbots. Then there will be a part on prompt engineering that is something that many of you tried already, I think. Then there is another approach to do this type of experiments, and then others that you will see. Already the list is long. So generative AI is something that come out in the last 7 years now, practically. They are tools that practically create probability distributions of complex content like text, images, videos, and they can create specific instances of this type of content starting from a prompt, a textual description of what we want, okay? In particular, large language models are this type of tools, but are specific for language and for text. They are totally based on machine learning. There is very little human intervention in the creation of these systems. We will see a bit more about this. They are trained on huge data sets, and they can do many things. They can generate text, answer questions, and translate stuff. It's a very high-level view of what they are. Practically, what they do is to predict the next word, okay? So given the word from now till 4,000 words before, more or less, most of the models are like this. Now we got Mamba that theoretically is 1 million words in the past. We presented this a couple of weeks ago. Usually what you have is 4,000 words. So from this type of content, you will get, from these previous words, you will get a prediction like this, okay? If you want to play and see what this means, you can open this, like a starting tutorial for this kind of system on Hugging Face. It is something like a repository of machine learning tools that are open source, so many people get their stuff there. When I say they are trained on big data sets, I mean things like 500 billion words, okay? So practically all the text we have is used for training them. For most of the systems that are commercial, we don't exactly know on what they are trained. So you don't know what bias will be in the behavior because you don't know what text was compressed inside these machines. But nowadays, kind of 2 days ago, a big data set was released. It's on Hugging Face, and is the biggest corpus that has been released open source for these things. We don't know what ChatGPT uses, but we know that there was a huge change. So when people got scared with BERT, we had like 100 million weights in the brain of these machines, let's say. So 100 million parameters. ChatGPT 3 got 150 billions of parameters. Therefore, we don't know anything about it. Actually, the idea is that it's around 1,000 billion parameters. So if you think it is smarter or more stupid than humans, probably has more connection than us, it still makes errors, so it's stupider, okay? So there are many things you can do with these models that you could not do before, because what you do usually is using systems that have been trained by somebody else. So you don't have to train them. They have been trained by somebody with a lot of money and are trained with all this data. So training a machine like this is just training. When you know everything, you have everything, all the machine, just in terms of energy can be around 10 million of training. Okay, so you don't want to get $2,000 just to train the machine again. Okay, so this is the type of constraints you have. But once you train them, you can reuse them on many different tasks, and you can do things called few-shot learning or zero-shot learning. So ask them tasks on which, in theory, they were not trained. We will see a couple of experiments that you will, I hope you find interesting. So these chatbots start. So the chatbot you see nowadays start from these machines, and they can generate human-like responses using these large language models. Differently from previous dialogue system, previous chatbots, you don't need to script their behavior. The behavior is already in some way coming with their training. When something new come up, you don't need to change the script. Obviously, you just train them again or improve them a bit with fine-tuning. And they can be aligned with different behaviors. We will see soon what it means. One important thing that they have is what is called knowledge. This is a big challenge for AI, because usually in AI, we were reasoning on models that we built specifically for a task. So if you were building something like Google Maps is like the first 3 core lessons of AI is to build a stupid Google Maps. People spend ages creating the map on which Google Maps reasons, okay? When it decides, gives you suggestion how to move around, some algorithms were used to create this the knowledge base used by Google Maps, okay? For ChatGPT and all these tools, there is nobody that spent time creating let's say, a knowledge base for it. There is all the text, you put it inside, it's 500 billion words, nobody has the time to check them. So what is there is there, okay? That's more or less the idea. It's not something taught to create a system expert on that thing. But we will see that you can do something like that with fine-tuning and other properties like that. So how you get a chatbot from a language model that predicts the next word? This is what's happening in ChatGPT. It is predicting just the next word. So if you put a question inside, it predicts one word at a time. So every word it says, put inside the language model again, and creates the next word. Okay, this looks like a detail for you. Maybe you think it's boring, but okay, you know, I'm an engineer, so boring should be the base. But what happens when you have a long experiment, when you have a long discussion? What happens is that after the chatbot answered you and you ask something else, the chatbot has to read again all the discussion till now to give you the next word, okay? So this means, this is what happens practically inside a machine. This is how you ask a dialogue to them behind the interface that you see. They are giving it the first turn where there is the first user giving. So the user asking something, the computer answering something, and so on. So this is the second question. So you have all the turns. Every time you say something, they all pass it to the system. Why this is important? Money. Because if this machine is so big, the bigger the questions are, the bigger the amount of text you send, the more you pay, okay? And obviously, there is also a limit of how long the dialogue can be. We were saying 4,000 words. That was not something that is too much. Consider sometimes you pass it, you are talking with it for 20 minutes, you get to 4,000 words. And then he forgets the beginning, okay? So this type of things happens. Now new models have a longer context, but we will see how much they cost. Practically, the longer the context and the cost is not linear with the length, but is quadratic with the length. So that's one of the big issue of all this. And that's why Mamba, the model we were talking before, is a big thing because it's actually linear in time. Okay, so before we were saying they are just taught on, trained on the data set that are found online. So this is true till GPT-3, GPT 3.5. The normal large language models are like this, so they are just the reflection of the statistic of the text you give them. New models, in particular from ChatGPT and InstructGPT, they are trained to replicate desired behaviors. So after you train them on, you spend the first $10 million to do that, then they have 3 additional phases when they provide examples of desired behaviors, and the users or behave like the chatbots or behave or rate the chatbot behavior. The chatbot learns what is good and what is bad of the answers, and then from this it generalizes. But this means that this behavior is not reflecting the statistics. So this is not the chatbot that reflects society. This is the chatbot that reflects what the developers want. Okay.
I understand. You mean that after initial training on open material, they have a human, like they train with humans, they chat with them and say what you say is okay?
Something like that, yeah. It's more complex. There are 3 phases, but they spent, I think, there was a big scandal because they say, behind ChatGPT, there are all these million people, but the million people were actually creating a data set for training. They were not behind ChatGPT answering whatever random question you have very fast, okay? So there was all this scandal, but the thing is they were just doing what they do on, I don't know, on a Mechanical Turk. When they annotate text for you, they say this is a good answer, this is a bad answer, all these kind of things. So, but the direction that people had to follow were given by OpenAI. So they don't reflect society. They reflect OpenAI directives, okay? And you can look for the papers. I think this is when the paper got out. This is the paper of ChatGPT. The blog out, but okay. So now, limitation of ChatGPT. This is a very big limitation. For the rest, everything is fine. So actually, sometimes you will see in the next slides that it creates some random responses because actually it's just predicting the next word. It's not understanding in some way, it just predicts. It is the same thing, it is not, that's not the point. Actually, if you see our results, I think there is a difference, but actually, 3 days ago, Altman says the ChatGPT sucks, 4, and this was 3 days ago. Obviously, 2 days ago, he says that the new version is coming out. Totally random, obviously. Nobody would expect. So the ChatGPT 5 should come up in a couple of months. Probably they changed something. Okay, so the first way to use ChatGPT is using ChatGPT account. You use what we call prompt engineering or prompt design. And what we try to do here was to create behaviors that are the desired behaviors. And in general, what we try to do is to provide an initial command to the chatbot so that it behaves as expected. Because ChatGPT is a stupid parrot in some way, you have to spend a lot of time finding the right command to give here, okay? And I think now, Cansu, yes. You feel like? No? Thanks. Come on, do it. It's left the words, so let's talk about it.
So in this case study, we tried to leverage ChatGPT as an educated chatbot, and then the topic was to teach about social media literacy. So this was the process that we used to come up with, like, design the prompt and the interaction. First, we designed the prompt, and then we see the answers of the bot. we evaluate the answers based on like how natural the dialogue is. So if it creates a back and forth dialogue, and we try to make it also ask questions to the users so that like the learning activity can be motivated and also enhanced. And then if the outputs are satisfying, we just check the prompt twice to see if it's consistent, and then we build on it. We gradually add like different information. It's basically to improve the personalization of the learning. And then we retest the revised prompt. And on the other hand, if the output, like the output of the initial prompt is not satisfying, which means like if it shows some kind of like problematic behaviors that I'm going to talk about later, we modify the prompt a little bit. We took notes of the modifications we made, and then start over with the improved prompt to see like if it made the changes. So this is the example of an initial prompt, like hello, I want to learn more about negative aspects of social media. Can we have an educated conversation about it? And then the actual answer provided by ChatGPT is just full-on bullet points, which is not common in informal natural conversations. And other behaviors can be like long essays without any questions, which is not common also. And when you ask it to like make questions about the learning topic, it asks like 10 questions in a row, which is again like problematic. Or maybe sometimes it doesn't ask questions. Or when we prompt it to behave in a more friendly way to like increase the engagement, it just bombards you with jokes. So there are other issues like limited reproducibility and then reliability. Even minor or no changes in the prompt can cause ChatGPT to respond with high variations. For example, like paraphrasing or adding a blank line at the end of the prompt can cause like different answers. Or as you can see in the photo, the exact prompt can cause like different answers format. And it's like when you ask it to behave in a different, in a certain way, like ask questions like a teacher, it may ask questions like a therapist, like it may ask personal questions which you would not expect from a teacher. Like, have you ever experienced a feeling of compulsion or addiction to social media? Like, thank you for sharing. Like, also the behavior, wanted behavior is not reliable. And other issues are like it can produce plausible sounding but incorrect or nonsensical answers. For example, when you ask a conversation, and then when you ask it to include me in the conversation by asking questions, it just hallucinates a conversation between the two people, like itself and user, like doesn't include the real user in the conversation at all. Or it can give you positive feedback for nothing, like incorrect or no answer. Like, yes, I could do it. Yeah, it's a great job. I didn't do anything. Or like, I just gave a wrong answer. I just made up a word. And then, yeah, nice job unscrambling it. Yeah, okay. So based on these experiences, we came up with some tips or like strategies to improve the prompts so that we can get the proper like educative activity. So it helps like defining a role to be played, and then the characteristics of the role, like act as a teacher with a sense of humor, like engaging, fun teacher, and using clear and short instructions to follow for ChatGPT. According to our experiences, yes, it helps. But also there's a recent study, they showed that like reasoning performance is highly sensitive to the ordering of the premises. I mean, like what we do is not a reasoning task, of course, but yes, like showing what we expect from ChatGPT to do, like clearly, shortly, and step by step, helps it to like create better interactions. And defining when the interaction ends also helps, because like if we consider like ChatGPT mirrors the human behavior, like human traits, when the user is not that like enthusiastic about learning, it also stops. But if you say like, okay, keep doing this until all the aspects are covered one by one, it expands the coverage of the topic, like subtopics. And also, like, if it's an option, dividing the topic into subtopics, like telling ChatGPT what to do specifically helps. But since like we are learning something, it's not an option all the time. Using a polite tone, it helps sometimes, like saying, can you please, hi, hello, but sometimes helps. And also a recent study found that impolite prompts often result in poor performance, but when you overdo the politeness, it also doesn't help that much. And they found that best politeness level is different according to the interaction language and therefore the culture, actually. And also, as a last point, we tried to add a couple of points, like tailor the conversation based on the field of interest of the user, like education background, education level, so that the interaction can be more personalized. Like the content ChatGPT provides can be like more understandable or more relatable to the user. It is like it can tailor the conversation based on the field of interest, educational background level better, but the cultural background is a little bit more tricky. According to our experiences, like the responses were less adaptable for different cultures. And again, in a recent study, they found that using English prompts with ChatGPT reduces the variance in models' responses. So like when you do the prompt in English, it flattens out the cultural difference and biases the response in an American culture a little bit. So they also found that like most cultures achieve better alignment when probed in their respective language. So at the end of the day, there is no perfect prompt. Like the responses are just random, and the system also continually getting updated based on data and feedback from the user. Neither the user or the developer knows how ChatGPT works behind the scenes. So it's just a black box, and then we need to like try and see what works and what not. And based on all the like experiences we gained and all the strategies we found, we conducted a pilot study with high school students in Italy. We wanted to see their perception toward AI, and also like learning about AI literacy and the prompting things, prompting tips we found effective would affect their perception toward AI. They needed to do a non-trivial task. It was about like learning about democracy. So this is the experimental design. In the first lecture, we taught them about AI literacy, and then we let them interact with the ChatGPT about learning about democracy. And then in the lecture 2, we taught them about the prompting tips, prompting strategies we found useful. And then they had the second phase of the interaction, let's say. And then after the intervention, like this workshop, we found that their threat perception decreased, and they found the interaction like unnatural and artificial, like interaction with a machine, but they enjoyed it, like it was enjoyable and manageable somehow. And then they had high positive emotions after the experiment. And then when they compare their second interaction to the first one, they find the second interactions like better, more natural, clearer. And at the end, like they find ChatGPT intelligent, but not really human-like, but behaving in an encyclopedia-like.
Okay. Sounds okay from Cansu GPT. So what you saw till now, actually, apart from this experiment, can be done just with a normal account on GPT, okay? You're also for free. When we did this experiment in class, apart from technical issues, given by the fact that if you do an experiment like this in a class, OpenAI will see all the users as one, because they all get out as one machine, and it thinks that is a hacker attack. So I had to teach high school students first year how to install VPN during the exercise. But until now, this was just based on on ChatGPT, the free version, but I asked the students to copy and paste their whole conversation to Prolific through Qualtrics, okay? And the issue obviously is that people lose part of the they don't copy everything and so on. You cannot really monitor everything. And the problem will be the same if you have the pro version, because you cannot, or you give them your password, but I don't think you want, or you give, or you have, I don't know, or you have them at your computer, because when you are using GPT as an account, you cannot get the data from other people. So to get beyond this, we developed a chatbot based using the API. API are practically the interface of a remote service like ChatGPT that you can call from inside another program. And in this case, you pay as you go. So you pay depending how much you use it. Remember the story of before, that a long conversation becomes expensive because you have to put every time from the beginning to the end, the whole conversation. So why you may want to use this, even if it's expensive, because maybe you want to personalize the chatbot, you can change the chatbot behavior without the user realizing it. You may store the data. You may deal with a multiple participant or something like that. You want to have people using it online instead of in your office, and you may want to collect people to Prolific or so on, right? So I think this is what you want. Okay, in this case, what we try to do is to create an interface that is a bit more flexible, allows you to create different prompts. All these parts in green are commands that we add to the interactions, but the user doesn't see them. And they are useful for various reasons. One is because they may keep the conversation under control. You give ChatGPT to students in high school, you tell them to do one thing, they do whatever they want, and ChatGPT will follow. It's trained to follow what you want. It's not trained to follow what you want to do with the experiment. So we added this additional information to try to keep it under control. Then what you want to do, for example, you can decide if the robots start talking or if children start talking, participants start talking. You can decide how random or repeatable the system is. So for this, Sathya and Gregor developed something, and now you talk.
So yes, we developed this interface. The user will see something that is very similar to ChatGPT's interface. So it will be very, very familiar to them, and it's very easy to use. It's this one. But it's an experiment, right? So we have a timer, and after a certain number of minutes, you can leave this interface. There are instructions also on how to use it. So the user sees this, and it's fairly simple and obvious what to do for them. But again, as Dimitri was saying right now, there are several settings that you can use to perform the experiment in a particular way, and the user does not see this. So obviously we need an API key, which you get from OpenAI, and you can set an initial prompt, a prompt prefix, suffix, ending prompt, and some parameters. So they're all a bit different, the first four. So the initial prompt is an instruction to ChatGPT that tells it how you want it to behave, but it doesn't respond to it. So if you, as a designer of an interaction, of an experiment, want to say to it to behave like a teacher, for example, you can do that in the initial prompt. The prompt prefix and suffix are things that the user does not see, but that are appended on the beginning or the ending of whatever the user will write. So, and the similar thing is valid for the ending prompt. The ending prompt is just as if the user had written two things. So whatever they wrote, and then another thing that you set here. And all of this can be used in a million ways. And the behavior of this is a bit different for each of these settings. The most important one, I would say, is the initial prompt. But even the other three can definitely impact the behavior. So for example, prompt suffix, I set the prompt suffix one day to "you're a balloon." And whatever the user would write, the ChatGPT would respond to it, and then it would say, "I'm not a balloon, I'm an AI assistant." So that's quite interesting. You can do these kinds of things that will.
What you see about what was the suffix?
You are a balloon.
You are a balloon.
Yes. Which is ridiculous, but the ChatGPT decided to respond to that every single time. So there are just 4 different ways to influence its behavior. Then there's the temperature. So Dimitri was saying before how ChatGPT is made to predict the next word. Okay, so this next word is actually a list of words, and you choose them with a certain probability. Temperature is a parameter between 0 and 2, where you set this probability. So if you set it at 0, it will always choose the most, or almost always, choose the most likely word. So the first one in this probability distribution. If you set the temperature to the other end, so let's say 2, the maximum, it will choose words that are less likely, and this will lead to problems with hallucinations and so on. So if you set it at 2 at the maximum, you can ask it, "Hey, how are you doing?" And it will just start writing nonsense for, I don't know, half an hour, unintelligible completely. And then there's the last option, which is ChatGPT will initiate a conversation. So when the user sees the interface, it will be greeted with the message generated, not a one that is defined by you manually, but it is generated by the service, by ChatGPT, right? So this can potentially be really interesting for maybe a personalization. For example, if you wanted it to greet the person with their name, you could do that. We would need to change it a little bit to be able to pass the name of the person, but this might be interesting because it can be potentially used for personalization. And these are the settings that we implemented so far. So let's say that you decide to run this thing. Okay, so this is the way to run it on a Linux machine. So more important than this, do you have the other one, please? Oh yeah, that's one. Great. Okay, so more importantly, what kind of machine does it have to be? So it needs to be a machine with a static IP address. So every device you have has an IP address. It's like an address to a house. It just identifies the device. And there are 2 kinds, dynamic and static. So your phone is going to have a dynamic IP. Your PC is going to have a dynamic IP, which means that even if you don't, every time you connect or disconnect, it will change. And even if you remain connected, it will eventually change, which is not a good thing for finding a house. Imagine trying to find a house whose address will change every half a day. It's not a good idea. So you need a server with a static IP. Another requirement is that you allow inbound connections. So let's say you want to find a house and you can only enter on a particular door. So you need these things to connect, to enter a house and to connect to a PC. You need to know which door to go to. So these inbound HTTP connections mean that a particular door has to accept a particular connection, and not all machines have that. So usually for these kind of things, ports 80 and 443 are used. But you need to make sure that your firewall and your internet service provider will keep these open.
So in Bicocca, you have to ask to Sistemi Informativi.
Yeah. But Bicocca also has another issue, which is it's within a VPN, so it will not necessarily be easy to circumvent this VPN. So as far as I understood, it's security policy of the university not to allow inbound. So outbound, yes, but inbound connections when somebody else wants to connect to your PC, it won't allow it that easily. So it's a bit difficult. And then another final thing is you need Docker installed. Docker is just a program that allows you to run other programs, and it makes sure that you that the environment your program needs is always the same. So the simple solution, if you don't have a server and a machine that satisfies these requirements, is to use the cloud. For example, an AWS Elastic Compute Cloud instance, which has a free tier, which means that you don't have to pay for 1 year, which is really good. And that is kind of the easiest way to get there, to have a PC that satisfies these requirements. Once you have that, then you basically run the following commands, and you get, as a result of your experiments, if everything went well, you get a database, a SQL-like database, and that can be opened in an appropriate program, and you can analyze it, export it to Excel, CSV, whatever. So all of these things are a bit complicated. They're obviously made by engineers for engineers, not necessarily for the average user. Ideally, we'd make it a bit simpler to use, but that requires time. If any of you ever want to use it, maybe we can make a short tutorial on how to go through all of these steps. Or you can ask a friend that knows how to do it.
Okay. So practically, okay, I never used this AWS EC2 instance for this. I used it for machine learning. These are machine given by Amazon, and I think also Google does the same, that gives you a server online that you can use for cheap. And then and the issue with AWS, the cloud, usually is that you don't want to share data, but consider that in the end, you are sending the data to GPT, to OpenAI. So why don't we give it also to Amazon? But Bezos is sending us a lot of stuff. So this is the format we have for the data. I don't know if you see. No, you cannot see. I can imagine only on the registration. Hopefully it is there. Practically, this is recording multiple dialogues. Each dialogue, there is the ID of the user, the phase. So because we can personalize the interaction to store different phases of interaction with different prompts, so you can do different conditions. Okay.
So something else. So you start GPT to give you the content, or you have an interface above GPT that gets the content?
So we have something like this, right? That I showed before. Let's see if I can show. Okay, so this is actually what you see in ChatGPT, how it works. Okay, so what we do is we add some lines here, some parts of the turn that the user will never see, but they are sent to GPT. So if you want to add information, you put them there, okay? And the user will not know. Consider GPT is practically a small, compact view of the whole web, so he knows a lot. You just have to dig it, and sometimes he gets you random stuff. But you don't really need to teach him anything, because usually he knows. But so if you want to teach something, you just write it. You don't need to ask GPT to say what you say, right? So this is how we can change the behavior. And actually, you don't need to do this. This is the interface of the implementation of the system. What we do to add this text here, you add it through this interface. Okay, this is an interface on the server where the database is running. So here I don't see the mouse. In the first one, you add the initial prompt that Sathya was explaining, the initial part of the text that you'll send it to GPT, and then all the other parameters. So you just write them here, and the code that Sathya wrote will create this properly for you. Okay?
This is the app that you created.
Yeah, he created.
Did you create? Oh, okay. Now I understand.
With Gregor's help, with the collaborator from Germany.
With Gregor. So this helps doing experiments. If you want to change conditions and so on, this helps. Installing it is not impossible. The difficult thing is actually having a system on, and we didn't think about using AWS, but probably is a good solution, I think. Okay, so I think this is an important question for everybody. Costs. For these experiments, the costs were quite low. These are the experiment, I think, of March. There were 575 requests. There are like 500 prompts that you send to the GPT for a total of 300,000, 400,000 tokens, like 300,000 words. And the cost was very low. I think it was 62 cents or something like that. Maybe I'm wrong, but the cost was low. I have to check. Actually, when you create a ChatGPT account with the API, they give you, you can create a team and you can add people that can do experiments with your API, and everybody has his key that is integrated in the app, and so you know who is spending what, okay? But you cannot stop them, and you will not know what they did actually. Yeah. So actually, a friend of mine that is director in Edinburgh just found that one of his postdoc was just mining. So it's a good way to use GPUs. Anyway. Okay, remember that when you have a long task, it is getting all the information inside. And remember another thing, GPT-3 for 1 million token is 50 cents. It's kind of free. You go to GPT-4, $30. Okay? So it's how many times? 60 times more expensive. And we found it out many times that is crazy expensive. So you have to be careful with that. And another thing, there are other models that you find in other papers. They use them. They are old, and in the documentation is not clear how much they cost. They are very expensive. Old models are very expensive. I have theories, but I don't know why. Another thing for money, there are grants from all the companies. They give you money to do research. So I got $5,000 from OpenAI, and I just asked more because in 2 weeks we got $1,000 out. So I think we will soon be poor. So they give you, is quite easy to get them, and you will have them on your account, and you manage them. Same thing from Microsoft or Google. Google, for starter, $300 that you can play with. OpenAI, only $10, or now $5. They are quite short-armed, I'd say. Amazon too. So there are all these links help finding money for research. I asked money to Google too. Let's see if they give me. And Google just released an open source version of a large language model. It's called Gemma. And they don't only give you the system, but they run it on their machine if you want. And so and they give you credit to run them if you do experiments.
Credits.
Yes, yeah, only credits. But consider for the first paper, in 2 days I put a GPT-4, and 100 euros I will never see again went in nothing. So yeah. Okay, so this is the set of settings where you can use ChatGPT in a couple of ways, or using the PHP or the React version. You can use them. There are still the problem to find the machine where to put it. but that's fine. Now we did some other things with this system that can be interesting for you. For example, what you saw until now are interaction between human and ChatGPT. But for example, ChatGPT is able to treat data. So it is trained from billions of data. You can give you more billions and you will still look at them. So, for example, you may want to check how reliable it is, how crazy it gets. So you can ask the same question multiple times. Or you want to see if GPT 3.5 is better than the other. You want to see what kind of biases it has, all these kind of things. You want to see, you have a data set and you want to extract features. You don't want to hire somebody to train a system for you to extract those features. You ask ChatGPT. And you do this with what is called few-shot learning. And I think Andrea can do this. So yeah, I moved my part later, so maybe I jump it. So this is an example of this type of experiments.
Hi, everybody. To talk about this study, first we need to talk about speech acts that are an interpretation of utterances as acts. And over the years, many taxonomies of categories of speech acts have come out. And dialogue acts are kind of speech acts that are more specific to the context. And examples might be information request and thanking. There's another picture. I don't know why. There should be the picture of the board game. The study is called LLM of Catan because it's based on. No, it's later. Sorry, my bad. The aim is investigating GPT's free ability in predicting and classifying dialogue acts. So, given a short dialogue act, we ask it to predict the dialogue act of the next turn or to classify the dialogue act of the last turn. So this is the picture I meant. Settlers of Catan is a board game. The corpus is called Stack. The researchers annotated turns from 45 games. There are more than 1,000 dialogues and many elementary discourse units that are the elements in which turns were divided based on 5 dialogue acts that were offer, counteroffer, accept, refusal, and order. They should be self-explanatory, and we didn't consider order because it wasn't so specific. In this game, people have to bargain resources, so that's why these are the main dialogue acts used. After a first part of pre-testing, in our testing, we use a script in Python that takes the inputs from the dataset, calls GPT-3 with the API. It has an editable prompt section so that we can just focus on that. And it automatically calculates the matrix we need, especially accuracy and F1. And then it has 2 outputs, a log with the calls with the final results, and a TSV file with the relevant items, especially the predicted dialogue acts and the correct one. So we have what I call the prompt trinity, because for each prompt, we have, at least in our study, we had 3 important files bound to each prompt. One is the script that remains as a reference also for later to go back and see what exactly was the prompt about. The output as a text file that has the metrics and all the codes to ChatGPT, and the TSV file that has the comparison between the input, the output from ChatGPT and what we compared with, and also it's important also to, if we want to check for errors. For example, sometimes there were some parsing errors in the output. It happens very rarely, maybe 2% of the time or even less, but those were registered as right, as correct when they should have been. So then we later reformulated our prompt or our calculations so to accept for them as well. In fact, in our pre-testing, one of the most important part was to find a way to make it produce a consistent output. And about the strategy we used, in the first phase, we can compare it to blindfolded shooting because it is very hard to say which prompt could work best and could be promising for little editing, little differences. And then during the phase 2, there were some prompts in which we changed a few features. But again, you never know that maybe you are following a path that is not so promising in performance. So sometimes it might also be wise to change it a lot. So then after one point, there was a kind of bottom-up process in which we went to look at all the prompts we had, and we saw that there were a few prompts in which there were some prompts that had a few things different from another one. That we kept the baseline, and this was the structure, and the mid-part dialogue is treated as a variable that assesses the data set. There's the description and the classes and examples that are something that we changed a lot. And then I'm going to talk a little about results, mostly to show you a few interesting effects. And the first one is that any variation can have an even big impact because in brown, we see on the picture on the left, the baseline, and the other two prompts have just a little feature that is different. The blue one has just a different order of the same text. But on the right, we see that we have 4 prompts in which we change the number of examples of the dialogue acts, and increasing them isn't necessarily linearly better. But again, you never know that maybe the example you added wasn't, maybe it's not the number, but what the specific example you added, that it is not right. Another interesting effect is that we notice a joint performance effect. So in the top 2 graphs, in dark blue, we have the baseline. That is our prompt from which we change the little features. And then we have 2 prompts, the brown and the green, in which we changed just a feature, and then a prompt in which we added both features within the same prompt. And we see that prompt outperforms incrementally the other 2. This is not always true, or rather, in the third example, we have 2 prompts that had a different performance to the baseline, not just better. And for accuracy, we see that the performance of the combined prompt was a middle ground, while for F1, it was just much above all of them. And then the question is, GPT-4 better than GPT-3? Here we have a comparison between GPT-4, GPT-3, and 2 studies that worked on the same classification task that we did, but used trained model. GPT-4 outperforms GPT-3 in all instances, and sometimes is better than the trained model. But in prediction, there are only 2 prompts in which GPT-4 does better than GPT-3, and those are the ones in which we also gave it the base rate of the dialogue acts, the conditional probability after dialogue act. It is 30% likely that this is the next dialogue act. So in prediction, actually, GPT-3 does a lot better, but it may be also because the prompt was originally built and developed based on GPT-3 performances. So maybe prompt developed on GPT-4 might outperform.
Okay. So, so this is something we just did very recently, and this was based on another work we did before, where actually we wanted to use ChatGPT to teach people to use ChatGPT. So we have 2 ChatGPT. The first one is the one you want to do stuff with, and the second one is the one checking that you do it properly. And this is the guy that was supposed to mark your prompts, and we want to avoiding him doing his job, and he just asked ChatGPT to teach you using ChatGPT. So we got the tips from Cansu on how to write proper prompts. So these are like 5 features. And what we did, we had the trials that Cansu did, and Mona, as another student, worked on that during the HTI course. So we took those features, analyzed the prompt, so we could find which features were for each prompt, if a feature was, if a prompt was successful, if the prompt was not successful, and so on. And so we got some samples of good and bad prompts, depending for each feature. And here is how we ask ChatGPT something. So this is the message we send to ChatGPT, practically. So we ask it, answer with yes or no if this is this feature, and we have a description of the feature that is result of the work of Cansu initially on the personal exploration. And then we have an example. So this is the first example where the feature is not present. Then we ask for this other prompt, and in this case, the feature is present. And then we ask another prompt that is the one that we actually want to check. So we provide some positive and negative example, and then we ask to tell us about one that he doesn't know, okay? So in this way, we could try many trials. What Andrea did were like 4,000 examples. You had something like that, 4,000. We had many less, and it's good because I spend a lot of money like this already. And we compared many machines and many versions of GPT, or version or ensemble of GPTs and so on. So GPT-4 was winning most of the time, but in some cases, on some features, like what is simple for GPT-4 is not what is simple for us. So that's it's already beyond my level as well. Everything is simple for him, probably. Giulio had a question or not?
Yes, I'm sorry. About the few shots learning.
Yeah.
Do you understand correctly that essentially you're giving GPT some examples of what you need to classify in a prompt?
Yes. Yes. This is a message where we send him like it is a chat.
So all the part below the white one is a big prompt. Initial prompt.
Yes.
My question is, do you need to pay for all this prompt each and every time?
Yes.
Okay. So for each white sentence, you need to pay again.
Yes. Otherwise, it becomes complex for him. He has to remember that he's checking a new thing. You remember how he does every single word? Oh, that's it.
Oh, yes. I remember my own was that you could, the API give it.
But his problem is not that. The problem is he has to read in any way all the words. So all the words have to go through the machine together with your last word every time. So it doesn't matter that you send it at the end. It will have to go through it again some way. I don't know if so. It's like the conversation of before. So every time you add something, it starts from scratch.
So each and every word, it needs to process all the prompt.
Yeah.
Fresh. Oh, okay.
That's a lot of. Okay, and I press the end by chance. That's good for you, maybe. But no. Okay, so these are some results. Another thing we did, this is with a student of the 3rd year in computer science. You know, the 20-question game is used to study children's ability to make questions, to find information, to study information-seeking behaviors with language in children. I think Azzurra Ruggeri explained something like this. Anyway, she's involved in this kind of stuff. And actually what we do, we have one ChatGPT talking with the other ChatGPT. One makes the question, the other knows the answers, but only says yes or no. And so this is the prompt of the guy that makes the questions, and this is the oracle, okay? 2 prompts, and they talk with each other. And you can see, I don't remember what is the ground truth. Okay, the ground truth is a fox. So it begins like, he knows the set of objects that are possible, and he makes a question if it is a bird, if it is a mammal, and so on. So he doesn't ask for each element. By himself, he finds that a good strategy is to ask more high-level features than going to the specific feature. Okay, so these are things you can play with. but he also is completely idiotic because he gets probability 0 after the first question on something. And then you know that if something gets probability 0, you can forget about it. It doesn't exist anymore in any probability model. While this moves from 0, it moves back to 0.14. And we just did it with more samples. The problem is still there. So this is not anything related to Bayesian estimation or things like that. It's a mess. And we didn't publish it yet, but I hope we will soon. And costs is, okay, costs can be high. So see that we did 456 million query last month, and this on GPT 3.5, and we did 30 million query at GPT-4 before I checked how much it cost actually. And so this is how much we spent on GPT-4, $899. So be careful. Okay, because if you don't have a grant, then you have to pay for this. Anyway, obviously, if you finish money, it will not go on, but be careful. The costs are the same list I shared before. There are the links in the slides. I will share the slides. Then what we saw till now, you have GPT, you specialize it, giving him additional information when you call it. No? You add a big prompt with information and he gives you an answer. If you don't want to do that, you can do training and fine-tuning. For example, if you need to do the same thing many, many times, you, instead of putting the prompts, you may think, I train it, I specialize it. And this is also faster because you don't need to parse the prompt and so on. I never did it. If we install something like the nephew of GPT on the office here on the machines, we can see something. But the only thing I can tell you, it is you cannot fine-tune or train GPT-4. You can only do it with GPT 3.5 at the moment. Even if yesterday I got an email from them saying that I can also use GPT-4 if I want, but I was already using it, so I don't know what. It was a personal email talking about more money, so.
But it costs more. After training, usage of your model costs much more than other.
But if they pay, for me it's fine. But the point is, I don't know what he means. So in the end, I don't know how this behaves, because when you train a system, the quality of what you get depends on how many samples you have. ChatGPT has been trained on, to begin with, 500 billion samples. Then you want to do you add a drop to the sea, no? That's what you do. And I don't know if it will work, but in theory, people manage to do something with this. Something very new, of which I have only one slide, and actually is very cool, and I think people can use it a lot here, and it's quite new. We are using this with Giuseppe Boccignone.
Nice.
Okay, so this is called retrieval augmented generation. This is a new way to improve or personalize the GPT behavior. It's almost finished. I have a few more slides of complaining, and then it's finished. And also I have people waiting for me, so I have to go. So actually what you do is, a friend of mine using this to manage all his papers. So you have ChatGPT read all your papers or your picture, whatever. They become a compact prompt that is somewhere inside the OpenAI or in your system. In this case, this is something people do on their machines. So there is a database with all your documents. They are there and they are pre-processed. When you make a query, a part of it choose the relevant part of the document, and GPT, when the machine, the large language model, uses your prompt and the document that are relevant to answer. And this is good to avoid that you ask something about history and he gets from what he remembers from reading 500 billion documents. He read it from your document, okay? So he can give you more precise information. You can give him more precise commands and so on, pictures. And what he does is you have your query, and this is the most near thing in your data set. So he takes that, give it into the prompt, more or less, and from that he produces an output. And the good thing here is that you don't need to do training. This is like prompting. It's just that he builds a prompt on the fly. There are libraries to do this. For you, you have to provide the documents, okay? You have to provide the documents. So if you want a ChatGPT that behaves like Elon Musk, you take all the nice things he says online, put in a document there, and you will have ChatGPT mask. And actually, there are several of ChatGPT masks. So this is something people were doing by themselves with small large language model. Since a couple of months, OpenAI allows you to do this by yourself on your Plus account. So
How's this method called?
the method is called RAG, Retrieval Augmented Generation. I will share the slides. So with this, if you want to create a character, an expert of something, you can put all the data there. If you want to do the introduction of a MIB tech or the BiHome, you put the map of the BiHome, everything you want, the picture of your pictures, the good ones, so he doesn't get the one online, and he will use those, okay? So this is what you do. You put all this information here, they go in a database, and a prompt is created automatically and goes to the LLM. So this is a pro version of what we did practically. It's an automatic personalization.
You have to pay for the encoding as well. If you fill out the documents,
yeah, okay. The thing is,
for the vectors and for the encoding, and
yeah,
that can cost a lot.
The moment, the thing is, if you use the normal account, the GPT, the one where you cannot record the interactions, is for free. So you can create your own expert for free, but you cannot, if you cannot use it with other people because you will not get the interactions. Okay, and the same thing. So assistance is the same thing, is a RAG practically, based on the server of GPT, on OpenAI server, and where you can get access to everything. So I hope I didn't go to the last slide. So these are I spent some time finding out they are not the same thing. And now I know. So GPTs are these RAG that you can use on your Plus account, but it's only for you. And this one instead is the one you use like to create an assistant in your app. You have to use Python or something similar to create the code. And this can allow you to collect data. So actually we should think about the next version of what we did that uses these features. But so there are many nice features you can do. You can make it, I was trying to have it organizing my calendar because always I have 5 events at the same time. I have to apply for what was the Trinity Powers or something like that. But I didn't manage, and I found, so this is a kind of a tutorial to do it, okay, to create your own assistant and personalize it. There is a wizard to do it inside OpenAI page. You can upload documents. It's for free for the ChatGPT account. It is paid for the assistant. The real problem with the assistant, so you can also create actions that interact with other web services. So you can ask it, go to check my email, go to check my calendar, okay? Okay, I spent yesterday night on this, but I didn't manage to make it work. So here are examples of people that say that it worked for them. The assistants are more or less the same. But what is happening is that now OpenAI is sharing this GPT with people, and they are full of dangerous stuff. So they bring you to website, pay you for random things, or they take your data. So you have to be careful. How? Because you can connect the GPT assistant to external services. External services make you. Yes. And that's already the calendar is an external service. Okay. So GPT is becoming a new internet in some way. The dark GPT, the advent. And so these are things you can do, but another problem is these are all links of people trying to understand how much you pay with assistants. Nobody knows. Because the problem is they are still communicating through tokens. So you call an external service sends you 1 gigabyte of data, and you pay 1 gigabyte of how much they are? $30,000. Okay, enjoy. So this is if you are using it for the assistant. For the GPTs, in theory not, but I think there are limits on what you can do with those, and still we cannot use them for experiments. Okay, so what was asked at the beginning from Alessandro, and actually the first thing is from the slides we did with Alessandro, and the point I want to show is this one. Remember, we are getting a new server, we have a small server there that is a quarter faster, so it's kind of a quarter of the speed of this, more or less, or half of this. So this will be 2 times faster than that one probably. Okay, Google computer is, one of the computers of Google is 142 times, 1,000 times faster than the new machine we are getting. And they have... So it's not easy to say we do the same things, okay? That's really out of work. So from even from state-of-the-art new tools that you can install on your machine with things like Mistral, Llama, Grok, or other cheap models, you still need to have a powerful computer, but you will never have GPT, okay? You will never have something like GPT running in the university. There will be different models, and so here are several solutions. Mistral, Gemma. Gemma is an open source version of Gemini, practically. Mistral is the version from the French guys, I think, right? Actually, the boss is Italian. It was in OpenAI before. Llama is still Google. No, Llama is Facebook.
Also, Elon Musk had a new one, open source.
Yeah,
Okay.
Grok. Was one.
Grok is okay.
It's Grok. But I feel that the resource is 128 gigabyte of RAM and 300 gigabytes of free space, and then you need at least 4090 GPU. And you can run it locally. It's not so expensive.
Yeah.
I don't know how.
So this one can run on your machine, okay? But you, as I was saying before, cannot expect that this has performance comparable to GPT. So the point is, they are not reliable. What kind of experiments are you going to do with them? That's something you have to think about. We already have problems thinking, okay, we give him GPT that was trained to behave well by all these methods, the alignment part I said at the beginning, and it's still, you can jailbreak him. So when you manage to make him crazy, it's called jailbreaking. So when you use these ones, I don't know. So it is interesting to try, but ethical approval maybe goes through now, but when people find out, the problems will not go to, because the problem will be similar. So I would not know what to choose. So we will install this for sure. So actually I have the guy that did the 2 chatbots talking with each other. He should install this now. I think we will go for Gemma, the Google last one. That is available open source, so we can see what it does actually. But I don't think I will use it to interact with humans. Naive humans, not for sure. High school students, forget it. I don't know. So this is the problem with these solutions. And still, if we get this, consider when this is running, you can forget to use the machine for something else, and you can forget to have more than 2 users at the same time, even on the big computer, okay? Because GPT is already slow, the official one, and it gets down when there are too many people connected. So this means that doing experiments will not be trivial with our systems. So my impression is that the easiest way to go is what the type of system we developed, maybe extended with the RAG. But we have to be careful that we don't end up spending too much without knowing.